Chapter 51. Lu Shu understood what Shifei meant. These items, which were created from the scientific research, were indeed incomparable against those in the legends. But those in the legends were so rare that even Shifei, who was part of the Black Coats, had only heard about and had not seen it before. It seemed like they were in the hands of those who were much higher up the organization. As for these scientifically made alloy tools, they were able to conduct magical powers and were easily reproducible. In other words, it could be mass-produced. Its material was probably not made of the sodium-potassium alloy since the higher-ups did not seem to bother controlling their circulation. Furthermore, Shifei would not have openly taken it out for everyone to see. Lu Shu had even looked it up on the internet yesterday and it could easily be purchased over the web. It surely had to be some other material, something which was technologically possible. Something of liquid state such as the sodium-potassium alloy was too hard to control for the average person. Who knew if the Daoyuan class was going to hand these items out to the students? Those with such weapons would have a significant advantage in combat over those who do not possess these weapons. Just as Lu Shu was deep in his thoughts, Shifei had announced the answer he was looking for. Everyone will have a chance to possess this item, but of course, not everyone would be promised one. Lu Shu understood exactly what it meant. This article was meant to stimulate and enhance one's practice of their powers, and those who performed well in class would be rewarded with it. As for those whose performance was subpar or those who were slow at cultivating their abilities, they can forget about getting one of it. Could his mischief system produce such a spiritual weapon or some sort? Lu Shu felt rather uncomfortable and suspicious about his previous thought, which could possibly come true. The first half of the lesson was about the Izhou participation contract book. Furthermore, the topics on spiritual weapons which enhanced one's practice were conveniently mentioned in the lesson as well. At the latter half of the lesson, everyone saw that Shifei wasn't exactly very unapproachable and someone took this opportunity to ask, "Teacher Shifei, is the information posted on the Golden Foundation legitimate? Is the site run by the government?" Upon hearing this question, Lu Shu sprung up and became exceptionally attentive as he very much wanted to know the answer too. Ever since the Golden Foundation had come into existence from all parts of the world, it hasn't been shut down after operating for such a long time. It made one wonder as to what this foundation was exactly. The Golden Foundation was established from the start and it did not have its own media coverage or representative, which made it seem a little more mysterious, but also being a tad bit more stringent on its information. As for its American counterpart, the Justice League, its site was exploding from all their declarations to put every villain behind bars which were simply too poor in taste to be viewed. What kind of existence could the Golden Foundation really be? After giving it some thought, Shifei replied, "I don't have the authority to explain this matter to you guys further, but what I can confirm is that the grading classification of the metahumans which is stated on that website is recognized and acknowledged worldwide. Metahumans aren't naturally born as Class A, and even up till today, there still aren't any metahumans who are discovered to be Class C and above right from the start. All of them needed to go through repeated stimulated awakenings to rise up the gradings and, for example, all strength-type metahumans all start off as Class F whose punches can probably reach the strength of about 1,200 kilograms, and as they reach Class E, their limit would probably reach nearly 2,400 kilograms. After hearing this, Lu Shu's expression changed as he realized that something wasn't right here. According to this theory, it was perfectly fine for Li Qi to belong to Class F, but the issue was that he had probably already exceeded the limit of 1,200 kilograms. Even reaching 2,400 kilograms wasn't that far-fetched though he had yet to test it out specifically. Compared to his classmates or his previous self, Lu Shu's physical condition had surpassed all of them in every aspect by a few folds. He had thought of it, and if 4 or 5 Li Qis were to appear right before him now, he could probably wipe them out easily. This meant that Lu Shu himself had already reached a level similar to a Class E strength-type metahuman, or perhaps even Class D. Shifei continued, "But don't look down on these strength-type metahumans. Their muscles and body structure would continue to strengthen as they climb up the class gradings. If a Class D metahuman were to stand off against an elemental type which was one class lower, the opposition probably wouldn't even be able to react to his movements. Furthermore, their combat abilities are far superior to any of the other metahuman types. Would there be a single metahuman who would awaken to different types of power? For instance, having the powers of the strength type and elemental type and maybe even others? Shifei shook his head. Nope, as of now, it is unheard of. There are many different types of metahumans, but I've yet to see one who possesses two different types of abilities. Even if a strength type awakened to the fire elemental powers, he would also develop his own unique combat style. Alright, that's it for today, we'll continue this tomorrow. I hope everyone remembered what happened to the expelled students who leaked out the confidential information shared within the Daoyuan class, and please don't repeat their mistake. This lesson refreshed Lu Shu's mind, and the most important thing was that he was much clearer about the concept of the metahuman's grading system. So which class did he belong to? Not speaking about being in Class D, but the constant inkling of him possibly already being in Class E had him feeling quite good about himself. Frankly speaking, should he go and pick up some form of martial art? If it's just using his instincts to fight against metahumans of the same class ranking, wouldn't he be at a great disadvantage? And anyway, can a single metahuman really not awaken to two different types of abilities? Since his abilities had to be cultivated, he couldn't be considered a naturally awakened metahuman. Lu Shu had also felt that the map within him wasn't as simplistic as just enhancing his strength. Even though he could not learn of what the Golden Foundation exactly was, Lu Shu was contented with what he had learned from class today. Classes were finally over even though it was just 2 hours daily. Starting at 7 p.m. and including the half-an-hour break in between, it would mostly end around 9:30 p.m. Lu Shu felt that this arrangement was rather decent as it was similar to doing self-revision at night. Even after his night classes, he still would have a substantial amount of time for himself at home. There were already cars lining outside of the school, probably here to pick up the students from the Daoyuan class, and more than half of the cars out there were the above-average kinds. As you can see from this society wasn't very fair at all since even those from the Daoyuan class were mostly from families who were well-to-do. Was it due to their better living conditions leading to a better physical standard, or them just having superior genes? Lu Shu wasn't sure which one it was. Even though this seemed like the case, Lu Shu wondered whether the same could be said about the ability to awaken and their aptitude for cultivating their powers. At least, he had seen videos of students from poorer backgrounds awakening on the Golden Foundation website. In view were countless parents who had come down to pick up their children, but Lu Shu's mind was only fixed on the many things he wanted to accomplish today as he made a beeline towards his home. One of it was to participate in his lottery as, without it, he would not be able to continue his business of selling the stinky tofu. As of now, Lu Shu's desires for the stinky tofus were surprisingly higher than his desire to win the lottery's possible grand prize, which could be similar to the lullaby relic previously. And the other one was to completely light up his 6th star by tonight. As Lu Shu progressed on his journey of cultivating his abilities, he felt that it became increasingly meaningful. Even this vast world had become more and more wonderful. Chapter 52. The area that Lu Shu lived in was once a home for officials and dignitaries in the 70s, which was also known as the West Family Courtyard. Following the constant development of the city, the original occupants moved out to a better place, leaving behind their old houses by either renting or selling them off. Even as the past family courtyard transformed into the present-day slum, it was still considered quite an interesting place. Lu Shu had initially rented the place due to its close proximity to Luocheng International School, which made commuting easier. Furthermore, the apartment had a yard and a hut which would normally cost more than the price Lu Shu was paying. There was a little path leading to their apartment upon entering the premises, and by the time he had reached their stretch of cottages, it was already 9:40 p.m. and the sky had turned dark. Just as Lu Shu was about to head into his apartment, his neighbor's door opened. The auntie whose medicine Lu Xiaoyu had always pestered for, walked out as a young man followed right behind her. A faint yellow glow from the room enveloped the two, and Lu Shu was shocked. The young man who stood behind the auntie had left a deep impression on him, Ji Wei. Just last night, Lu Shu once again noticed that Ji Wei contributed 1 distress points to him. Ji Wei had left a significant mark in Lu Shu, which was nothing like the others. He was present at the place where the incident had happened to Liang Che. And Lu Shu spotted him yet again from the fire disaster news report the other day. Hence, Lu Shu had already noticed and consciously linked him together with the metahuman situation. The only issue was that he was unsure of the other party's actual identity and why was he always connected to incidents pertaining the metahumans. Now that the other party had appeared at his neighbor's house and was acting very familiar with her, Lu Shu felt that something was rather odd. He had never thought that he would have a metahuman as a neighbor. Well, given that one was a kind auntie and the other was a stroke-ridden grandpa, they had lived in the area for 10+ years. It had never crossed Lu Shu's mind that perhaps his own neighbors could be metahumans since one of them was just a kind-hearted auntie, while the other was an elderly suffering a stroke. Even among the neighbors, it was mentioned that these two had already been living here for over 10 years. However, with the appearance of Ji Wei, it sounded a slight alarm in Lu Shu's heart. If one of those neighbors were to be involved with a metahuman, there could come a day where Lu Shu would be implicated with the black coats. And that would definitely be a pain in the ***. Lu Shu had first planned to keep silent and stand in the shadows from afar and would return to his place only after Ji Wei had left, as he did not want to be involved with the youth. On second thoughts, he realized that the pathway in front of his house was only 3 people wide and it was inevitable that he would be noticed. As such, he then proceeded ahead with his head hung low. Only to hear Ji Wei conversing in front of the door, "Auntie, there's no need to send me off. I'm grateful for the many years you have taken care of that old fart. He should feel better after consuming that pill, and if there are other relics available, I will try my best to get my hands on them." The auntie whispered back, "No need to thank me, I was the one who initially volunteered to take care of him." "All right then, I shall take my leave now," as Ji Wei walked out of the door. Just as he turned around, he spotted Lu Shu walking towards him with his head held low. Ji Wei's eyes sparkled. Such a familiar silhouette, how could he possibly forget? When he had gone to find the suspected metahuman Liang Che initially, he had met this teenager. Trying to be courteous then, he greeted him with, "Hi, nice to meet you," and the reply he received had troubled him for days. It wasn't that he was triggered at the reply, but rather, the fact that he couldn't think of a reply to Lu Shu's words annoyed him the most, even though he considered himself to be pretty witty and intelligent. This incident made him feel as though his intellect had deteriorated. The embarrassment he felt made him remember this teenager, and ever since then, he was always thinking of a way he could possibly answer to such a reply as, "How happy exactly?" Ji Wei felt that if he were to ever meet this teenager again, he definitely wouldn't stumble on his words again. This time, he was prepared and was looking forward to what kind of expression Lu Shu would show the moment he gave his reply. Imagining Lu Shu's face filled with shock from his reply, he couldn't resist but feel happy. However, the issue was that he couldn't find that teenager again. It was as though he had a nuclear warhead ready but was never able to launch it, causing him to feel awful inside. If Lu Shu had known what Ji Wei was thinking of exactly, he would understand as to why this dude had been contributing distress points to him up until last night. With lips curled up in the corners and brimming with confidence, Ji Wei walked up towards Lu Shu. "Hi, nice to meet you." "It's too early for you to be happy." Lu Shu had realized what Ji Wei had planned when he heard what came out from his mouth. He was obviously looking for trouble. Lu Shu thought for a moment and delivered his reply to trigger Ji Wei yet again. He continued to walk past Ji Wei and opened his door with his key, entering the house. Leaving Ji Wei stunned, he was feeling horrible entirely. "Why do you have so many tricks up your sleeves? How unreasonable can you get? I was being so polite in greeting you, and in the end, all you have to say to me was that it was too early to be happy. Can't you just conform to the logical flow of actions?" Chilled air in the early spring blew up from the ground at high speeds while Ji Wei stood rooted to the ground. with a priceless expression on his face. He had never expected Lu Shu to throw out a reply that he could not follow up with. From Jiwei's distress, plus 419. Jiwei turned his head rigidly and asked, "Auntie, does he live just beside you?" "Oh, you're referring to Shu, his name is Lu Shu."
"Yeah.
"He lives just beside us and he's a good kid," while she laughed at Jiwei being shot down by Lu Shu, as though she had seen an interesting scene. Jiwei took in a deep breath. "Auntie, could you please not tell anyone about this?" "Sure," as she smiled joyfully. Lu Shu closed the door upon entering his house and took a look at distress points coming from Jiwei. Right after the initial chunk of 419 points, distress points were coming in constantly at a rate of +2, compared to the previous rate of +1. But more importantly, he was deep in thought. Why did Jiwei appear here? Just when he had stunned Jiwei, Lu Shu was sure that from the other party came a strong energy surge. That energy surge, unfortunately, had surpassed Shifei's. This, however, was secondary, and what Lu Shu could not help but think of was the actual reason as to why Jiwei would show up here. At that moment when he annoyed Jiwei, Lu Shu was certain that he felt a massive wave of energy being emitted from him. Such an amount of energy could perhaps already surpass that of Shifei's. What kind of medicine did he offer to the elderly, and what about the relics he had mentioned? Jiwei said that, if there are other remains available, which could be inferred that there are already relics available out there and that his medicine originated from those remains. There were too many things Lu Shu did not know of in this world, and tonight was the first time he had heard of this foreign term, remains. Even if he could confirm that Jiwei was a metahuman, what about the actual identity of his neighbors? That auntie said she had volunteered to take care of the elderly man, and judging from her tone, it felt as though both of them were from some sort of organization. This was totally different from the rumors in the neighborhood which labeled her to be the daughter-in-law of the elderly man. What the hell, the world had already started to take a turn in the opposite direction. How did his ordinary neighbors start becoming weird too? Chapter 53. Lu Shu, quick. Make me a crepe. As Lu Shu pondered about the matters of Jiwei and his neighbor, Lu Xiaoyu started asking him for food. And as of now, Lu Xiaoyu strongly believed that Lu Shu's abilities were to make food appear out of thin air, and he could definitely make those crepes for her. Only that he didn't want to. What a petty person. I'm telling you, Lu Shu, your supernatural powers are so weak that you can't even make a crepe appear. How are you going to make a name for yourself in the world of metahumans in the future? Lu Xiaoyu lamented. How many times do I have to say this? I can't make a crepe appear out of nowhere, as Lu Shu snapped. After changing into his slipper, Lu Shu entered the lottery once again by raising his hand and then handed over a portion of stinky tofu over to Lu Xiaoyu. In the past, he would fear those words, "Thank you for participating," but right now, every lottery participation rewarded him with a portion of stinky tofu without fail. Lu Xiaoyu wasn't a picky eater and simply accepted the stinky tofu from Lu Shu, since having something would definitely be better than having nothing at all, right? How about movies over the weekend? Asked Lu Shu. Lu Xiaoyu looked over at Lu Shu with suspicion in her eyes. Movie tickets are expensive, I don't want to go. I no longer sell those eggs anymore. I'm selling these stinky tofu and I've already earned about 100 today since they don't cost anything. Maybe I'll sell even more tomorrow, so we have money. Lu Shu explained the situation to her joyfully. He knew that she wanted to go as she had been bugging Lu Shu to go to the movies with her when she was not as mature in the past. And Lu Shu could even remember the title of the movie she had wanted to watch, Ice Age 2, The Meltdown. At that point in time, Lu Shu was really short on cash, and if he had really brought her to the movies, he wouldn't even be able to afford their meals. Thus, he had braced himself and ruthlessly rejected Lu Xiaoyu's wishes. Shortly after, he rented the DVD for it and they watched it together in their apartment. And even though Lu Xiaoyu was just as happy watching it at home, this incident left a significant mark in his heart where he felt that he had seriously let this little girl down. Although Lu Shu would take the initiative to invite her out to the movies recently, She would turn down his offer and claim that just watching the TV was enough for her. And as a result, Lu Shu's heart would ache every time he recalls that moment in the past. Lu Shu had sold a little over 20 portions of stinky tofus today, and he had already earned more than $100. With his current 14,000 plus points, he could draw even more stinky tofus, and hopefully, tomorrow's business would be better than today's. As such, Lu Shu thought that it would be fine to bring Lu Xiaoyu to the movies just this once. Initially slouching on the sofa, Lu Xiaoyu's eyes sparkled as she sat up straight the moment she heard Lu Shu explaining the situation to her in all seriousness. Really? Recently, there's this new movie called Avatar which seemed really good, and they claim to have some 3D effects. Can we really go? Of course, as Lu Shu smiled at her. It's only at times like this when this little girl's joyous and surprised expression would bring out a great sense of achievement within Lu Shu. Handing over his handphone to Lu Xiaoyu, "Come on, we can even choose our seats now. We'll settle on this Sunday afternoon, and after that, we can go eat duck blood vermicelli soup in the evening." Lu Xiaoyu was very simple-minded as she was contented as long as there's Lu Shu around for her and food to eat. But if there were movies for her to watch, it would surely be even better. After Lu Shu handed over his phone to Lu Xiaoyu, he started today's lottery participation. The lottery had gotten a lot less daunting due to the fact that there would always be stinky tofu awarded instead of nothing previously, and if by chance anything special were to be revealed, it would just be a surprise bonus. This morning's stinky tofu sold out relatively quickly, not because of the fact that everyone loved its taste, but rather, due to him not having sufficient distress points to stock up on them. Even if he was to have 30 more servings of it, they would probably be sold out as well. However, the main point was that they were indeed delicious and perhaps, there would be returning customers again tomorrow. Which was why he needed to prepare a little for tomorrow's sales. Lu Shu gave it second thoughts and decided to draw 50 portions out because of two main considerations. Firstly, if he had drawn more portions out from the lottery, his storage box wouldn't be able to contain all of them. And secondly, if his business was to carry on for any longer, it could possibly hinder him from getting to school on time. Lu Shu did not have any special favorable background, and if he was to be late, he would definitely be disliked by his form teacher, Shi Qingyan, even though his results were rather decent. This was something which he didn't want. It wasn't that he did not want to hear the complaints from others, but rather, worried that he could not endure those complaints any further and end up hating them back instead. That was a joke. Lu Shu had ascertained that it was definitely just a joke. Although 50 portions seemed too little, it could earn him $250 a day, which amounted up to $7,500 a month. This meant that his life together with Lu Xiaoyu could be much more financially secure. The sum of the average wage of two middle-aged workers in Luochang did not exceed 10,000 currently. And even though it was demanding for him to single-handedly pay for both their school fees, there wouldn't come a time where he would not be able to handle it. 1 portion of stinky tofu, 2 portions of stinky tofu, as Lu Shu repeatedly entered the lottery. And even till now, he wasn't sure if the stinky tofus were similar to the refresher fruit where he would reach a certain limit of drawing them from the lottery, before it became a permanent item in the store. Just at this moment, Lu Shu was stunned for a second. He had just seen a flicker of something which wasn't a stinky tofu when he was continuously spinning the lottery wheel. He had continued to spin the lottery wheel due to habit and did not notice the new item which had revealed itself. Lu Shu had gotten a bit excited and quickly opened up his system's inventory to find out what exactly did he pull from the lottery, only to find out that it was a piece of golden paper. Yet again, another piece of golden paper. Lu Shu shrieked in elation at that instant as he had not seen this item in such a long while. And judging from his experience, this was, without doubt, a new ability for him. As of now, he only had the method to cultivate his powers but did not have actual technical abilities. He currently felt that all he had was an empty, passive ability which resulted in him only being able to have melee combat with others, which felt extremely barbaric to him. If this time it were to empower him with an actual ability skill, it would be so awesome. This skill had better be one which could destroy the skies and earth or even be as powerful as the heavenly Buddha palm. And before going into combat with someone, he could ask them whether they had heard of a skill which would descend from the heavens and demolish them, which would be super cool. Or it could even be a sword technique which allowed him to control a blade in the air or one which could split open the skies. He could step on top of his blade together with Lu Xiaoyu and go to all sorts of places which would help him save up on their travel cost. What an economically efficient idea. For a chosen one such as Lu Shu, it was pointless to have high hopes for him to possess big ambitions. Even if he were to learn such a skill which allowed him to control a flying sword, the first thing on his mind was to bring Lu Xiaoyu along for a joyride. What a hopeless brat. After retrieving the item from his inventory, Lu Shu scanned over the words written on the paper and felt rather awkward this time. They were illegible to him. How do I use this? I'm fine with singing yet another lullaby, but how can I sing anything if I can't even read it? Just at this point, Lu Xiaoyu strutted along and curiously asked, Lu Shu, what's that in your hands? And just as she approached him, the golden paper suddenly disintegrated into a cluster of golden-colored powder which floated its way into Lu Xiaoyu's body. After the golden paper had vanished, Lu Shu felt a sense of impatience from the paper. It seemed as though that it would seek out its own master. Chapter 54. Lu Shu. What is this? Lu Xiaoyu exclaimed when she saw the golden page turned into golden dust and started diffusing into her body. I didn't do anything. Lu Shu replied, this must be something that belongs to you. He was also confused by what just happened, but when he held it, there was no reaction. However, the moment Lu Xiaoyu got close to it, that had happened and the only explanation was that it had recognized Lu Xiaoyu. Try to feel something, see if there's anything weird happening to your body, Lu Shu asked curiously. He wanted to know what kind of power that was. Lu Xiaoyu did as she was told and closed her eyes. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and exclaimed, there's this map in my head and inside the map was 7 nebulas. What? Lu Shu was really surprised, are you sure? How did that happen? Could it be the same power as mine? I'm sure, Lu Xiaoyu nodded, there were 7 nebulas of different sizes. I felt like I could communicate with the galaxy. There's like these dark shadows moving into the map and there's a small star. The strange thing was that the map was really bright but the stars were like black spots. Shouldn't stars be bright? But why didn't Lu Xiaoyu have to sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars? God damn it. Lu Shu was upset. Why did he have to sing the song but Lu Xiaoyu didn't? Something must not be right. Maybe he was focusing on the wrong detail. Lu Shu was in deep thought. Based on Lu Xiaoyu's description, her map was a little different from his. His own map was a pitch black and only by unlocking a new star could he light up a small part of it. But Lu Xiaoyu's map was already bright and the stars were dark. After singing the song, the sky that appeared inside him was filled with bright stars. But for Lu Xiaoyu, the stars appeared as dark shadows. His were bright while hers were dark, what could be the link? Neither of them knew. The black coats probably had no clue either. This was really strange. What else do you know about those shadows inside your head? Are there any weird things? Lu Shu questioned. I'm not sure. They just appeared and entered the map. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes were glistening with excitement. Lu Shu, did I just awaken? You did. I'm sure of it. Lu Shu was a little envious. She did not have to sing any song and the training was even automatic. Could this be that lazy bum's unique power? Lu Xiaoyu also did not have to sacrifice her sleep to train since she did not need to spend any efforts guiding the stars into the map. What kind of system is this and how is it so troublesome for me? It's still not too late for me to change my powers, but it better be soon. Lu Shu thought. At this moment, Lu Shu bought a celestial fruit from the shop and offered Lu Xiaoyu, eat this and see if anything happens. But the moment Lu Xiaoyu's hand touched the fruit, it immediately dispersed into bright stardusts which penetrated into Lu Shu. Lu Shu knew something was not right. Logically speaking, if the refresher fruit could be offered to someone else, why was it different for the celestial fruit? It must be because of Lu Xiaoyu's newly obtained power which rejected the celestial fruit. This was really weird and Lu Shu had a whole bunch of questions. Could it be that Lu Xiaoyu's power was the polar opposite of his? There were still some other differences in their powers. Lu Shu looked at Lu Xiaoyu's palm. On his own palm was a mark of a sapling with 5 leaves which represented unlocking the 5 stars, but there were no marks on Lu Xiaoyu's. And Lu Shu had this ball of white flame within his heart which Lu Xiaoyu did not. Since Lu Shu could not figure out anything, he decided not to think about it first. But what Lu Xiaoyu had was indeed a form of training, and if she could quickly unlock the stars and obtain superhuman powers, this would make Lu Shu feel more at ease. Lu Xiaoyu had also started to look more attractive, and who knew when evildoers would appear. Being able to protect herself could lessen Lu Shu's worries. It would be terrible if Lu Xiaoyu was kidnapped. The previous time when Lu Xiaoyu went out to sell eggs, Uncle Li had warned Lu Shu about some man hitting on the young lady. This was also why Lu Shu had not been letting Lu Xiaoyu sell eggs on her own until Uncle Li and others offered to send Lu Xiaoyu home. But now there was really no need to worry. Within another half a month, if Lu Xiaoyu was to meet a bad guy, her 1,000-pound strong punches would destroy them. And with Lu Xiaoyu's sharp mind, she could easily differentiate the good from the bad. But Lu Shu should still educate Lu Xiaoyu on not using her power impulsively. He started sharing about the existence of the black coats, the blood drive etc. to her. Lu Shu made sure that Lu Xiaoyu had understood all that and they arrived at a consensus. The two of them sat on the sofa and talked about their abilities all day. Lu Shu told Lu Xiaoyu everything about his situation and Lu Xiaoyu finally believed that Lu Shu could not make crepes. Finally. Even though she had stopped requesting Lu Shu for crepes, she still got her way with receiving 2 portions of stinky tofu from him every day, no matter what. Lu Xiaoyu rubbed her eyes. Lu Shu, I'm sleepy. Can you tell me a bedtime story? No way. You're too old to be listening to such stories. Lu Shu twitched his mouth. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 199. Lu Shu, you've changed. You used to. Wait. How in the world have I changed? Speak up. Lu Shu had run out of excuses. Indeed, when they were at the orphanage, Lu Shu used to tell Lu Xiaoyu bedtime stories. Lu Shu tucked Lu Xiaoyu into bed. He had been thinking for half a day and still did not know what story to tell. All the stories he knew were already told. There was a boy who liked to sleep with his head under his pillow. Before Lu Shu finished his sentence, Lu Xiaoyu laughed sarcastically. Lu Shu, are you making something up to trick me? You've really changed. Let me finish. There was a boy who liked to sleep with his head under his pillow, and guess what? When he woke up, he discovered the fairies had taken all his teeth. Lu Shu burst out into laughter. I'm sure you have not heard this one. Lu Xiaoyu? From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 399. Chapter 55. Upon hearing the story of the boy, Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lu Shu calmly and said, Lu Shu, there's something on your face. Lu Shu hesitated for a moment, touching his face subconsciously. What is it? Did I not wipe my mouth clean after eating? Nope, it's just my gaze of despise is on your face, said Lu Xiaoyu as she covered herself with a blanket, turning around and going to sleep. Go screw yourself. Lu Shu turned around and walked out of the room irritated. Lu Xiaoyu's toxic tongue was just like his, and it was as though both siblings were contenders at angering people for a living. However, he had other things to settle tonight, such as lighting up the 6th star. Now that Lu Xiaoyu had her own training method, it seemed like it required less effort than his in order to cultivate her abilities. Since it was an automatic procedure that raised her stats, it allowed her to save the extra time required for the active cultivation. This was indeed very unreasonable. But unknown to him, how fast could Lu Xiaoyu cultivate her abilities? Well, he would have to ask her after she wakes up the next morning. Lu Shu stared at the vibrant yet deep galaxy while seated by the window in his room, starting his practice for today. After practicing for the whole of last night, he had achieved the effects of 2 celestial fruits. Including the training tonight, he would have lit up half of the 6th star, and if he was to redeem and consume 4 celestial fruits, he would definitely be able to light up the 6th star. Lu Shu had originally returned home with 14,000 plus distress points. Using up 5,000 of it to participate in the lottery, those points were converted into that piece of golden paper and 49 portions of stinky tofu. Still left with over 9,000 distress points, there were enough points for him to light up the 6th star. One by one, he swallowed the celestial fruits. The majestic celestial energy from the fruits ran rampant within his body, as if there were surging rivers of stars flowing deep inside of him before finally merging into the vast galactic map. In a flash, dawn had arrived while he was immersed in his practice. The sky churned out a white ray from afar while the connection between Lu Shu and the galaxy started to weaken, until the spiraling galaxy phenomenon could not be seen anymore. That celestial connection was transformed into sun rays, which penetrated his body, fueling the fire which was burning in his heart. These events felt extraordinarily magical to Lu Shu. As such, he felt that this world was far too magnificent since there were too many things unknown to mankind out there. After he had lit up the 6th star, the starlight from within reached out warmly for a moment. It was as if life had been quietly growing and was finally blooming. The celestial powers started to nurture and strengthen Lu Shu's entire body. However, it did not fully take over his own self, but rather, it gathered and enveloped his skin and bones. Similar to the tides, they do not erode the entire coast, but with each incoming wave, it was as though the coast had become tougher and stronger. Lu Shu had suspicions as he had previously wondered whether lighting up the 6th star would bring about an absurd boost to his physical strength. If so, what would his grade be when that actually happens? But after lighting the 6th star, his strength did not change at all, while only his skin and bones felt as though they had gotten an upgrade. Although the same usual, supple skin remained, Lu Shu was left with an impression that it was indestructible. After pondering for a while, Lu Shu mercilessly sliced his finger with a knife, only to find out that he couldn't cut through it. That's impossible. Lu Shu knew he had reached Class E when he had lighted up the 5th star, but he had never tried to find out if his physique was any different. The only thing that he knew was that he had insane reaction speed and superb strength. Now, he had surprisingly found out that after the 6th star had been lit up, he had become impenetrable. What does this mean for the other metahumans? Do the Class E strength-type metahumans possess such a trait? Then he remembered, was it like what Shifei had said, that strength-type metahumans had a resistance to damage? So this was what Shifei was talking about? Those strength-type metahumans had resistance towards physical damage. He was unsure whether other strength-type metahumans would experience the same effect upon their advancement to E-class, but only time will tell. This kind of physical strength felt rather boorish. Although a knife couldn't slice through his skin in his own experiment, Lu Shu had not exerted all of his strength onto the knife. In a realistic, life-threatening situation where his opponent would use a sharp weapon and all of his strength, he probably wouldn't be able to protect his own neck from coming off. Hence, firearms would be something he definitely couldn't withstand. This situation seemed rather disappointing, and with the era of metahumans, having no ability to overcome firearms meant a bleak future and freedom. Furthermore, those defensive attributes gained did not seem to be very exceptional, and his body could still be destroyed. The main issue was that Lu Shu's strength was considerably great, and a force amounting to half of his strength was probably needed in order to cause physical harm towards him. If so, what about the other metahumans? Even if a Class F metahuman like Li Qi was to attack him, it would be similar to the games where he would only barely suffer damage of -1-1. This was probably the difference between Class E and F. Lu Shu was elated upon thinking about it. At least he was much stronger than the other kids who were around his age, wasn't he? What if he had completed the first nebula on the map? Would the stars surprise him yet again? He merrily went over to wake Lu Xiaoyu up. Lu Xiaoyu, take a look at the map and see if there are any changes. Lu Shu, do you know that it's only 6 o'clock, said Lu Xiaoyu angrily. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, +199. Don't waste any more time, replied Lu Shu gleefully, hurry, feel it. Lu Xiaoyu focused for a moment. There are 3 stars that are fully blacked out. In relation to Lu Shu's own map, it would be similar to having 3 stars lighted. Lu Shu felt as though the whole world had collapsed on him. In order to light up the first 3 stars initially, he required a total of 2 celestial fruits. That being said, Lu Xiaoyu's cultivating speed last night was similar to his. The problem was that she was sleeping soundly. Sleeping while it automatically cultivated her abilities at the same speed as him. Could this joke stop already? Lu Shu, is my progress a little slow? How many stars have you lighted already? Strange, why am I unable to cultivate my abilities in the day? As Lu Xiaoyu curiously questioned.
Yeah.
It's a little slow. I'll go make you some breakfast now. Lu Shu rejected the idea of continuing the topic as there would be absolutely no harm done if there was no comparison made. Both of them had consumed 8 refresher fruits each and alas, possessed the same cultivation speed. What an interesting fruit, however, would a day come when Lu Xiaoyu would catch up to him? Since he was the elder brother, where would he put his pride if that was to actually happen? With Lu Xiaoyu already being able to grow by leaps and bounds, wouldn't it be bad if she had caught up to his current state of abilities? Then again, there were significant differences between them. Lu Shu could consume the celestial fruits and cultivate in the day, both of which were impossible for Lu Xiaoyu. Feeling his dignity as an older brother waver, Lu Shu was overwhelmed with an urge to earn distress points in order to purchase more celestial fruits. He had to earn distress points. He had to protect his prestige as an older brother. Picking up his phone, he sent a message to his class group. You guys are up so early. It must be to witness my new moves, right? From Li Qingyu's distress, +211. From Yuan Lingqi. From Jiang Shui. A few thousand points pocketed in just one wave. What would be the first thing his classmates would do after waking up? The majority of them would be scrolling through their chat groups. Jiang Shui sat at a grand dining table, eating her porridge with an expression as though she had just seen a ghost.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look